So let's dive into this ad account and find out why these leads are so expensive. Now, there's a few things here that I think you could tweak to make it a little bit more effective. So just starting back at some of your older ones, um, if you go back into like February when these were being run and look at your ads. So first of all, the first thing I see is that you have an ad set with 3 different ads in it. And so this is kind of an unspoken golden rule that nobody really talks about unless you're kind of like a more deep level expert, that the golden rule is kind of like 1 ad per ad set. And the reason is, I don't know if these were all started at exactly the same time, maybe not, but if they were, you can see that one gets a lot more reach than the others. And that's because Facebook doesn't use this setup as a way of evenly distributing or testing. What it does is it will take one set of ad creative and it will prioritize it very early on, sometimes prematurely. And so you'll find that you end up getting a disproportionate amount of people seeing one ad over the others. And so sometimes it might not even be the best one, but Facebook has just kind of like picked it as the winner, and that may not necessarily be the case. So I always do 1 ad per ad set. So whenever I'm diagnosing a campaign that I didn't run, then I always look at that one of those things first. Like, are they putting a bunch of ads into 1 ad set? And that's often a big culprit for high lead cost because you end up not optimizing anything. So if you do want to test a few different things, test 1 ad per ad set. So that means you would go into your ad sets, you would duplicate one, and then change the targeting or change the ad creative or whatever you want it to do differently and just run that separately. So that's one thing. The next thing I usually look at is the link click-through rate. And so the link click-through rate will tell you basically how many people are finding the ad compelling enough to click on to find out more. And so my benchmark is about 1%. So anything above 1% is pretty good. Anything under 1% is usually needing improvement. Sometimes I'll accept under 1%. If you're still getting a good lead cost and it's still working fine, then whatever, but that's always something to look at. So you may need to change your ad creative or your offer in order to bump that up. So if you were working on the benchmark of 1%, basically half of the people in this running ad are clicking on it as you should. So of course that's going to hurt your numbers. The other thing I like to look at is this number called CPM. And CPM is a super important number because it's the cost per 1,000 impressions. And I think a lot of people overlook this metric. And it's really important because the higher this number is, the more expensive your ads are to show to people. And so anything between $10 to $20 on average is pretty good. Anything above that, unless you're in certain parts of California or really highly competitive areas, anything above that, you're going to be running into trouble because basically you're not going to be showing your ad to enough people to get some really good results from it, and your results are going to be a lot more expensive. So that's another thing. There's a lot of elements that go into how Facebook calculates CPM, one of them being local area, the other one being your targeting, and sometimes your ad copy can affect it as well. If you're talking too much about weight loss or things that they think are kind of borderline unacceptable for their terms of service, then they're going to jack up your CPM. So I can see that you have some high CPMs here, and let's dive into that. So you have your motivation one here from February, and let's look at your targeting now. I'm just going to move my thing up here so I can see better. So let's look at your targeting. Looks like you have women 28 to 50. That's usually okay. I'll usually do like 25 to 54, but this is fine too. Looks like you're targeting a bunch of different local areas. If you have a bunch of different areas like this, sometimes zip code targeting can work well too. But otherwise, this should be okay. Your audience size is all right. If you have an audience size that's too tiny, then you can run into trouble. But here's where I kind of see some trouble here. I almost always get rid of any interest targeting when I'm doing a local campaign. And there's a few reasons for that. One is like it's not really that effective. And 2 is the interest targeting is a little bit more suitable for big national campaigns where you're your potential audience sizes are like millions of people, and you need to narrow it down. And so for local, you're not dealing with a massive, massive amount of people. And Facebook's algorithm is so much smarter than we are. And they will be able to find results a lot better than we can. And so basically, if you just leave your targeting wide open with gender, age, and local area, then Facebook's going to go out and find the right people. And if it doesn't find it right away, you just have to try it again, and it's going to find it the next time. And so I get rid of all of these interest targeting things, because all it does is it reduces your audience size and it drives up your ad cost. So the more detailed targeting you do, the more expensive your ads are to run. So if you just let Facebook do its thing, you're going to do a lot better. So I get rid of all of that. So then the last thing that we really need to look at then is your ad creative and your offer. So those are all sort of like our metrics for deciding what's going wrong. And I would say in general across the board here, you're getting pretty low click-through rates on almost everything except this testimonial one you have running. So just looking at some of these, like let's see, Women's Challenge. So I saw in your motivation one, for example, the offer was a free class. And if you've been following my stuff in my email list, you'll know that I don't really go for the free class thing because it generally doesn't work. And people know it's just a sales pitch in disguise anyway. And you're not able to offer people any real results. And I can kind of see that you figured that out with this challenge ad. But one thing I would definitely do differently is first of all, make your offer a lot more upfront, because when you're on a mobile device, what shows at the top is what people are going to read. And if it's not clear right away what your offer is and what you're offering, then you're not going to get good results. So again, I see you have interest targeting here. And then here I see you're doing Instagram ads and instant articles, and you're serving it to all devices. So I'm here to tell you right now that when you're doing any targeting, mobile only is the way to go, because most of Facebook's traffic happens on mobile, and unless you're in very specific industries, desktop is almost never worth it. Now, there's always exceptions to the rule, but that's the basic rule. Go mobile only, Facebook feed. Don't worry about Instagram. Don't worry about instant articles. Take all that off. Just Facebook feed on mobile. That's what you want. Anyway, going back to your ad itself, the offer needs to be a lot more upfront. And I like that you call out the local area here. That's perfect, because people need to know that this is in their area and this is for them. So that's really important. The next thing is, like, you could potentially have a problem with your offer here. And the fact that it's a 12-week offer is probably hurting your results. First of all, because they don't know it's a 12-week offer from here. So a lot of people are just going to scroll on by without reading it because there's no real offer up here. But 12 weeks is a really, really long time. Like, I don't know what I'm doing 12 weeks from now. And most people don't either, and don't like to plan that way or commit to something for 12 weeks when they don't even know what it is or who they're buying it from. And so a lot of people will just skip by it because it's just too much commitment. That's why I usually go for like something like a 30-day offer or a 4-week offer or 28 days, or sometimes 6 weeks is good too, but a lot of people are doing 6-week challenges. But in general, 12 weeks I think is just too long. So I would experiment with something less than that. And if you're doing it at half the normal cost, that's something you'd want to put up front. And this kind of solid block of text is not that compelling to read. And it's a little bit hard to sort through. It's easy to just skip over because it's not clearly written or easy to digest, if that makes sense. So we can just look at, I'm not going to go through every single ad you've created, but that's my general feedback for those. As for what you're running right now in your testimonial campaign here, I think it's really cool because social proof is great, testimonials are awesome, and sometimes they can work really well. It looks like you're getting a high click-through rate, but you're getting very low conversions. So that what we're looking at here is that 66 people clicked the link and only 1 signed up. So that is a very low conversion rate when people are clicking through. And so sometimes that can be your offer, or it can mean that people aren't getting the information they need in order to make a decision. They're not, like, they clicked through because they were curious about it, but then whatever they clicked on didn't pay off for them. And so let's see. Again, automatic placements is definitely a no-no. because they're going to show this ad in all the places you don't want. You just want mobile feed, of course, like I mentioned. Yeah, your audience size is really tiny here. So yeah, that means your ads are going to be pretty expensive. Now, I'm not sure why it's so small. 30 to 45 people who live in this location. Okay, so these towns, apparently it's not logging people as living in them as much as it maybe should be. So you could always change it to, unless you have a lot of tourists, which you might in Florida, you could just do everyone in this location. But if you have a ton of tourists who aren't going to stick around, then definitely stick with who live in. But then you might want to put a radius here, or put the address of your gym and then put a radius around that. Or do zip code targeting. So you can notice I'm not giving you one exact answer, because sometimes these are things that you need to test and find out and experiment with. But right now your audience size is too small to get any real good results from. So I think that is one of your major issues there. And so you can see this number here called frequency. Frequency is the average number of times that people are seeing your ads. So those 3,800 people on this $20 a day budget, it's basically showing it to them over and over and over again. And so they've seen it almost 3 times now, and it hasn't worked. Showing it to them more times isn't really going to help. So if this were my ad, I would shut it off right now, and I would start over with something else. So that's one thing to fix, is your audience size for sure. You need more local people than that. And I would do it probably with zip code targeting is probably what I would do, and then select people who live in that. And then just looking at your ad itself, again, this is hard to read. It's kind of just block text here. And if people are seeing this on mobile or whatever, it's hard to read through. And then just looking through this quickly, it's not really clear what people are actually getting. It says free day pass, but it's not clear what people actually get with the free day pass. And again, people know that's a sales pitch in disguise, so they don't usually go for it. They'll go with more of a longer term offer that's going to get them some real results. And that's tested and proven. I've tried it every which way you could to sell free pass, and it doesn't work. Not for me anyway. So small group personal training, 2 to 4 times a week, but there's no like duration here. It's just kind of like join our gym, and it's not really compelling because it's very indefinite. It's like, do I have to come here for years to get results? What do I get out of this? What is what's included with it? What what kind of person is it for? How will it help me overcome the challenges I've had in the past? It's just not very clear what's actually being offered. And so when people click through to find out more about it, that's not really paying off, because you're just sending them to a lead form with no information. So what I would do is I would switch up your offer and make this a lot easier to read, and you're going to get a lot better results. So I think you have the makings of a good campaign. It's just a matter of making those tweaks and finding something that works, and testing and finding out. Of course, if this is something you want me to handle for you, I'm happy to have a chat about that and see if it's a good fit. But if you want to go it alone, that's totally fine too. So good luck. I hope this has helped, and have a great day.